Swiss knowledge, technology, but not too much jargon, I promise. Going to be in layman language that we all general public can understand. So showing us the Swiss experience in terms of how water resource management has been managed. Over to you.
Madam Consul General, Mr. Undersecretary Ma, Mr. Director Lam, Madam Yang Ying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored and privileged I feel today to speak to you, and let me stand up. When we got this invitation for a presentation here, of course I was looking also at what you did before, and I see it's a whole series of events you organized, and was really impressed by the wealth of knowledge which was already gathered in these previous seminars, and I was wondering what can I add to this. Aren't Hong Kong and Switzerland just too different in terms of water resources management to learn from each other? What image do you have of Switzerland? Maybe this? Clean lakes, mountains with snow on it, clear view. So I can tell you, that's reality. I took the picture myself. And what image did I have of Hong Kong before I came here the first time 3 years ago? A bustling city with lots of skyscrapers. And again, I think it's reality, because again, I took the picture by myself. But also, when we were here, together with Daniel, I've been here now for several times, and last time we took a walk for 2 hours along Dragonback Trail, early Sunday morning. So we didn't cross, for 2 hours we didn't cross any roads, we didn't see any house, just green, luxury green, flowers around. It was so relaxing. And when you come to my hometown, Zurich, I will be happy to show you also this. So there is development also in Zurich. For the last few years we had a population increase of about 1% per year, mainly in the cities, and mainly due to immigration from high qualified staff which come to Switzerland for work. So there is development in the cities, there is reconversion of industrial sites, residential buildings being erected. So if you think of water resources, yes, it's really very different, Hong Kong and Switzerland. You have around 300 cubic meters per year of fresh water. In Switzerland we have 5,000 cubic meters per year of fresh water. This is all calculated per capita, of course. Population, this is quite similar. I mean, I've been working now for around 20 years in the sector in Switzerland, and I run across always about the same people. We know each other, we know how we behaved in the past, so it's like a small village in Switzerland. And maybe it's the same here in Hong Kong, you will tell me. The wealth, or as GDP per capita, it's quite really similar, Switzerland and Hong Kong. I think the welfare in general is really high. We're both among the top 20 worldwide, if you take Human Development Index as an indicator for that. And then the next ranking, that's, I think, really remarkable. Both Hong Kong and Switzerland, we have each 2 engineering universities among the top 50 worldwide. And if you compare that to the population with that, that's, I think, really an achievement. So, and another similarity, I think, is we both believe in liberal economy, so it's even more easier to open a business here. We experienced it yesterday, so it was really an easy thing to register here as a company. And I think we both also very much globalized. Here you're #1 worldwide, I learned, which means I think we both have really competitive economies. And on this basis, I would argue, yes, you have a physical scarcity of water. If you take the number 300 cubic meters, that's well below this usually used 1,000 cubic meters per capita in the year, which is often regarded as a limit for water scarcity. But I would argue this physical scarcity is not really limiting for you. You have long-term contracts for importing water. You can build a desalination plants or several of them. You're a wealthy company. You can import those products which use a lot of water in production. So I think the topic, and this is common for Switzerland and Hong Kong, is more about economic scarcity. We want to provide our economy and society with the best possible access and quality of water resources. And but we both also have, I think, a reputation of being pragmatic and thrifty, so we don't want to spend too much money on that. So it's really, I think, a question of optimization and risk management, what we should do. This is Lake Zurich, and my hometown, Zurich, is on the shores of this lake. So you can see it looks clean, this water. It's nice to take a boat tour during a sunny day. You might also see, scarcely see, there are some fishes here, so you can actually fish, and then you can eat this fish. You can swim in this lake, and even drink the water when swimming without treatment, no problem at all. But it didn't always look like that. Rita was mentioning it before. This is 50 years ago, same location. Streams going into the lake were foaming, there were algae blooms, wild dumping sites on the shores of these streams, or even on the lake, and frequent events of fish kill. Now, I'm trying to somehow distill 20 years of experience in Switzerland, and of course this experience are very diverse, and it's not easy to distill something out of it. But I tried, and I'll put it into some kind of recipes. These are the 5 recipes, Swiss recipes I'm going to show you. And I know you're gourmet, so of course you're free to pick whatever you think is useful and tasty and leave the other aside. Please forgive me for using some French here in this menu, but you might know that there is also French-speaking part in Switzerland, and we're also quite influenced by French cuisine. And also, please forgive me, in the following I will use some mainly examples from our own projects to illustrate what I want to share with you. That's not that we would be the only water consulting company in Switzerland, but it's just that I know these projects best. So we will have, on the menu we'll have fusion data, régime du jour, water à la carte, triple stream, restoration, protection par excellence. You might know fusion cuisine, that's the idea of bringing different ingredients together and then coming to new flavors. And I think there are some similarities on how we should work with data and information. And that really starts with monitoring. So in Switzerland we do quite a lot of monitoring on different levels. So the regulatory agencies, they do monitoring, the operators, they do monitoring, NGOs do monitoring, and then also on specific projects there is monitoring. And when combining this information, this can really, or is the basis for getting to good decisions, according to my experience. Just illustrated here with an excerpt of one report we did for one of the cantons around the year 2000. And the question there was really, quite easy to identify those areas within the canton which are in most use and most need of integrated water resource management. It identifies those sub-catchments. And to come there to a result, we combined like 50 indicators, some of them already based on several variables, and we aggregated them, many years of data involved. And I think this gave the basis for then a listing of priorities which was widely accepted because it was based on sound analysis. Then if you go on in the process, and here again 2 examples, we were involved in this national research program on sustainable water management that was running over 4 years with a budget of around 12 million Swiss francs. Swiss franc is about the parity with US dollar, and 16 projects. And it was really a combination of different actors there. So for instance, our project, there were 2 universities, 3 consulting companies in the project team, and then we had a lot of interviews with the stakeholders, authorities and NGOs. And I think that brought us to new insights, this working together. Right now we're working on guidelines for the federal level for water use in emergency situation. And the setup here we have is that one as officer from the federal office, he's really part of our project team. So he works part-time in our office, and this is a close cooperation, and I think it's really helpful to understand each other well. I think we very much believe also in localizing the situation, and let me illustrate that with the sector of hydropower. Hydropower is important, we've heard that before in Switzerland, and of course there are also conflicts of interests also for hydropower. It's versus nature versus recreation, and this is a diagram from a methodology we developed just to illustrate. We do not have like a very simple rule. Biological flow requirement is 10% of natural one. It's really very much localized and also in time. So for instance, the whole of Switzerland is subdivided about 300 sub-catchments, and they all have special conditions which are taken up in the guidelines. And then if you go to realizing infrastructure work, this is here about the new hydropower plant with investment sum of around 400 million Swiss francs, so it's a considerable investment. This takes a long time and it involves several rounds of, we could say, negotiations with municipalities, with NGOs, and everybody knows that it's a cumbersome, let's say, exercise, but we undergo it, and in the end I think it really helps to have solutions which are accepted by all sides. The next recipe I'd like to illustrate from a concrete project we're having right now. It's for a private investor on Lake Zurich. He has a former industrial site and he wants to convert that into high-end residential buildings and I think also some commercial use. Under this site there is a small stream which was put into a pipe culvert, so 50 years ago, so that's what was our usual approach at that time. Nowadays the regulations in Switzerland require that streams must not be kept in pipelines. So whenever you want to build something new, you will be confronted with this new legislation. Now the private investor, of course, he has also financial questions here. So he's asking himself, okay, how much space can I still keep, or how much for my use, and how much do I have to give to the river, and who's going to pay for this river restoration? So when we get a mandate like that, we always try to convince the investors that it's not only a question of cost, a restoration of river, but it's also bringing benefit for himself, like having a good image with the people living or working here, and also for the neighbors. So these new nature sites could be very beneficial also for him. And on the other side also we try and tell to the NGOs and authorities, it's not always about maximizing the space you have for nature when doing such a restoration, but it's more important to have them positioned strategically, these sites you have them interlinked, and also come to a solution which is still attractive for the investors, that things will happen in a reasonable time. So we'll have a meeting with the authorities next week and we will present these two ideas. My favorite is this one on the left side, which will use the existing pipe as a flood relief pipe, so it will be kept in use, and just have the river here as a small restored site, which but with very nicely placed greeneries, and I think this will be the best solution. But we'll see what will come out of this meeting. For this one, I would like to start with telling you about the failure we had. Some 5 years ago, we got a mandate from the Federal Office for Environment to develop new institutional models for integrated water resources management. The present situation in Switzerland is this: we have some overlapping different kinds of river basin organization or integrated water resources organizations. We have a difficult or a complicated way of how federal level cantons and municipalities work together. It's not really strictly top down, but it's more in the sense of guidelines and some financial incentives. So in the project team we developed a clear new model really based on catchment areas with a clear line of command, and we got very excited about that. And we even got the vice director very excited about our ideas. But then when we came to the director, there was a full stop of our ideas. And of course this was a disappointment for the project team. But I think in the end he was right. He said, I have no way of getting that across the parliament. I mean, these interests of the existing situation are just too strong. This was one argument. And the other argument, which I think is more important and which really convinced me also personally in the end, is that we have, with these OLAPs here and different kinds of approaching integrated water resources management, we have also like an institutional competition, and this is really helpful for bringing forward also some new ideas how to do it best. You can compare and then choose whatever is best. So I have to hurry, I understand. Let me see what else I can tell you. 3 minutes, I guess. Huh? I will mention this because it's I really like economic and financial instruments. And already around 10 years ago, we got commissioned by the Swiss Water Association to do a benchmarking standardization. And when doing that, I really realized how important benchmarking is a good instrument, I think, for doing or incentivizing utilities to improve their performance. But when you do it, you have to be really sure that you use the same standards, the same definitions, and also you have to be clear on how reliable your data is. Then another thing, I learned from this project down here. It was I was intrigued by the fact that financial instruments in some occasions seem to work well, in others they not working well. So we analyzed that in our research project there, and we came up with the conclusion that it really depends on the situation of your target group. If your target group is dependent, let's say in a weak position, then financial instruments can be really helpful. They will bring effect in the way you want. Otherwise, if they're in a strong position and they know very well what they're doing, probably the effect will be minimal, but not necessarily the cost of financial instruments. And for communication, also, our results were that communication instruments, it's really helpful if there is a need for information. But once people know what it's about, they're not changing behavior anymore. And well, these are just still research results, so I will be happy to hear from you whether you can confirm or not. But I have some indication. Some 20 years ago in Switzerland, there was a lot of communication measures and telling to the people, you should save your water, this kind of information. Nowadays, it's much less. So I can use as much water as I want at my home, but I have to pay for it. I pay about 2 Swiss francs per cubic meter of drinking water. And another 2 Swiss francs for the same for wastewater treatment. And another 1.50 Swiss francs per square meter for my lot, for stormwater management. And this helps for economizing. I think I have to skip, my time is up already. Now, I hope that you found some of these recipes tasty and you could pick some of it to your liking. And if you ask me what would be my favorite one, then I would say the ingredients, high quality ingredients, that's the most important thing. And if you have that, innovation will come naturally. So, yes, there is an abundance of water in Switzerland. We are a water tower. But I think we are a water tower with a view. So our view, I think, is to always excel in water protection, water resources management, and that's really helpful, I think, for making society and economy happy and attracting also them in the future. Thank you very much.